Welcome back to Grinding to a Halt. Today I am talking to Johnathan Dane. He is the founder and CEO of KlientBoost. I mean, just legitimately the best agency out there doing it. So, Johnathan, how are we doing today?
Appreciate it, man. That's a nice warm welcome. I'm doing great. I got Southern California, December sunny skies. Plenty of my Huberman lap style looking in the sun kind of like protocols. So I can't complain.
It's really rude to say to a person who got a foot of snow this week.
I'm looking out your window and it looks white, but I can't actually see the snow, but I'm assuming that it's bad.
Yeah, no, I shoveled my driveway 3 times in a 24-hour period because we got a foot of snow in 24 hours.
There's this thing called salt. Have you heard about it?
With that amount of snow, I
No,
tried
it doesn't matter.
That was a rookie mistake. Last year
Yeah.
when we first got here, I was like, I'll throw some salt on that shit. It'll melt. We'll be good to go. And then my driveway was like a skating rink. It was a nightmare.
That just shows the lack of awareness of how other climates work here from Southern California. Yeah.
I mean, also, I'm a guy from the South. So a dude moving up here, which everybody
Yeah.
here is like, why? You know you did this backwards, right? We go to you, you don't come to us.
Yeah, that's not the migration pattern of humans that we normally see, Zach. What are you doing?
No, it's I'm against the grain. That's my thing.
Yep.
That's the speed I move.
I love it.
It's good to talk to you. I really appreciate you making the time. I know you're
Of
busy.
course,
You're
man.
building a company and all that stuff. Growing a
I
company.
think everybody thinks people are busy, but people make time for the things they want to do too. So you had a great
Yeah.
opportunity and I took it.
Well, I appreciate it. In putting together the show and thinking about who I wanted to bring on for the first few episodes is kind of like my mission statement. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. You were honestly one of the first people I thought of because
Thank you.
the first conversation we ever had really stuck out to me because we were talking about agencies. We were talking about what it's like working in agencies.
Yeah.
And you said to me, the bar is so low because agencies don't even treat people like people. Like if you
Right.
just hire someone and you take care of them and you respect them as a human, you will get the best possible performance out of them.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of everything I've ever heard from an agency.
It blows my mind in the fact that, and this is not to brag at all either, but in 2022 we won the #1 best place to work by Glassdoor.
Yeah.
And in 2023 we're in the top 30 and there's no agency above us either. So
Yeah.
for an industry known for being stressful and high turnover and all that kind of stuff, we're doing quite okay, I would say, and I'm proud of that for sure.
Yeah, no, there's an intentionality to what you do. So
Yeah.
as I think about guests and as I put them on my roster of people I want to talk to, I do their name and then next to it I put a word. Is as I think about how I want to build, this is the way my brain works, and it's
What is my word?
intentionality. Intentionality
sick.
is
Let's
the
go.
word that I was like, all right, if I'm thinking about JD and I'm talking to him, what is the word that I think of when I think of him?
I
And it
appreciate
is
that.
intentionality. Knowing how KlientBoost works and how you structure that company to focus on being able to change rapidly because you're scaling rapidly. It takes a lot of intentionality in every single step that you take and why you're doing something. The methodology has to be nailed down, but it also has to be explained to everyone so you know why the ship is moving the way it's moving.
Right.
But also knowing that, hey, we could pivot at any second because if it's not working, we're not going to keep doing it just because I said we're doing it because you know
Right.
you can be wrong too.
Right.
And that's
Sometimes.
well, it's a rarity to even say sometimes I could be wrong.
Sure. No, I definitely am. I eat a lot of a humble pie, and I kind of have had this mindset over the years where I'm like, the more that I'm wrong, the better we're all off because it means that I can level up one more time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because the journey's never done. It is about iterative change over time. Anyone who thinks they've got it figured out is going to be left in the dust because
Right.
someone else is actually working on it while you think
Yeah.
you've got it.
Exactly.
So it sounds like you're good with that word being the word that I associate with.
I have never had anybody describe me like that, but I'll take that. It's the most, I'm not going to use the word romantic, but it's I feel so loved and appreciated, honestly. So thank you.
I mean,
I'll take it to the bank.
You've seen me in short shorts and almost no shirt. So if you want to call it romantic,
Yeah, we can take that offline. That's fine too.
So, my question for you is what is it like day to day? And I know you said people are only as busy as they make themselves, but like realistically building a company and having a family, having a wife and kids that you also need to spend
Yeah.
time with. I feel like in the marketing industry, it is positioned as you grind and grind and grind and grind, and there's no
Yeah.
stop until you achieve success. But success is
Sure.
not a real thing, it is intangible because success is a moving goal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you hit 20 million MRR. What's next? Like, that
Yep.
can't be the end goal. It has to be
Right.
something else.
For
Just
sure.
like in your personal life, it's the same. Like, you don't want to plateau in your relationship with your wife. You want to keep
Right.
pushing and it be a deeper love, not the love you had last year. It needs to be a
Right.
better love.
Yep.
So, what's that balance like for you? How do you work towards those things and how do you manage them?
So the interesting thing is I don't work more than 40 hours a week for one. And that's just a matter of knowing that when I'm 80 years old and people are asking me, what do you regret in life? I won't want to have the common answer, right? Of like, I
Yeah.
wish I would have spent more time with my wife and kids. Maybe a little bit more with the kids. Sorry,
Yeah.
wife, if you're watching, they're just more fun
Yeah.
sometimes.
Of course.
We know this, right?
Dude,
Um,
it's my daughter's 8th birthday today. So like
oh,
when we're done with this, we're gonna go eat cake, and then she wants to go to Texas Roadhouse. So we're gonna go to Texas Roadhouse. Like that is
that's a hilarious request for an 8-year old, but we'll go with it. I love
yeah.
that. It's your word that you used to describe me. It's the intentionality. It's being deliberate so that like my attention is way more important than my time, for
Yeah.
example, right? And so you also know how it is with having kids. They like you want to spend time with them, but they're also going to get bored with you. And so
Of
they may
course.
only want to spend like 10 minutes, maybe max, and they're going and playing with something else or watching
Yeah.
TV or outside. So like the demand of time isn't that big. My wife and I, we have a great balance in terms of our health, our wellness, our quality time, and what we do. We love watching Survivor, for example, and like
Yeah.
talking about that. And we hit the pause button like every 30 seconds, like, oh my God, did you see that? So like, and I know that's like us both consuming content, but we feel good. And the most important thing that we have is we have these little check-ins
Yeah.
that we, funny enough, have brought from the values of Client Boost back home. And it's just this question is of how can I be better for you?
Yeah.
And what can I tweak on the love language front or whatever it may be, for example, to be deliberate and like, oh, I hear your feedback and thank you for that. Like, I want to take action on that. So the cup is always filled because you're always so intentional and deliberate that like you don't have to worry about checking the box of spending time
Yeah.
because every moment is going to be quality and you know it already.
Yeah. The how can I be better for you model in the work setting is jarring at first. Um, because
From
I
the
don't feel
outside, I can see it. Yeah, yeah,
because I don't feel like most of us are used to a manager or a boss in quotations coming to us and saying, "Hey, am I doing anything wrong? Is there a
yeah.
way that I could better help you do your job?"
Yep.
And it's something that feels like a test at first. It was kind of like the first time a company said, "Hey, we have unlimited vacation," and I was like, "No, you
See
don't."
what you do with it.
You don't have unlimited vacation. You're
Yeah,
testing me. This is,
yeah,
and that's kind of how like how can I be better for you meeting feels at first
yeah.
because it is like well I can't be honest because honesty gets me in trouble if I say what I actually think all the time.
Sure, sure.
But it's not. It is no. We're gonna do this because that's how everybody gets better.
Yep.
And again, it goes back to that intentionality of those interactions have to be meaningful because it is a set amount of time and then we have to move on to other things. We're busy. There's a lot of clients, there's a lot
Sure.
of needs, there's a lot of spinning plates. So taking that time to just be like, hey, honestly, how am I doing? What can I do for you? Are you happy? Do you want to go
Hmm.
somewhere else?
Yep.
That shit is important, and no one else that I know of does it. And like when
Yeah.
I tell people about it, they're like, "That's weird," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's good." But then it carries over to the client side also of doing that for clients and asking clients those questions. And
Yep.
agencies do not ask clients questions because they know the answers, and they're afraid of those answers.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, it's like I use the analogy internally of you have a cough that's been lasting longer than usual, and you're afraid to go to the doctor because at worst it could be lung cancer.
Yeah,
At best, it'll pass, right? But you don't want to know the truth. But if you don't know the truth, there's nothing you can do to improve the relationship between you and your lungs or you and your colleague or client or spouse or whoever it may be as well too. So
yeah,
you can extend it to the friends and being like, the bar is so low, like we talked about,
yeah.
right? And that little thing of just the intentionality, the deliberateness of genuinely caring about, I know that if my people that I work with are in a better mental state, they
Yeah.
feel like I'm taking this action as like a servant leader and wanting to genuinely better, because nobody comes and asks for the heaven and earth when you ask those questions either, which I
Yeah.
think is what some CEOs, for example, are afraid of. Like, oh, they're going to be so greedy. They're going to ask for more money all the time. Like they don't, they
Yeah.
just don't. They know that it's a business. They know that you have to have certain profit margins. And so they're like, my favorite part is that what always ends up happening is that the majority of the answers when you ask how can I be better for you are absolutely no brainers. I'm like, oh, without a doubt we need to change that. Like that's a no
Yeah.
brainer. And the same thing with your wife. We're like, I thought I was already doing that, like, or that
Yeah.
should not be the case, you know. And so you then give people the option to not only hear their feedback, that's step one, but
Yeah.
acting on that feedback, that's the most powerful thing. That if you looked at our, when we won our Glassdoor award, it was a common thread between all the things that we saw in our reviews. Like, not only do that these guys give a shit, they also act on the things that we're telling
Yeah.
them about. And I'm like, wow, give me a pat on the back, sure, but like these are such easy little tiny things. And if everybody can figure out doing that, we could essentially raise the collective health, mental health of a lot of the things that we can control, right?
I worked at an agency and I was there for, I don't know, 2 years. And in my exit interview, I could tell that the CEO did not know my name, like without looking at the meeting invite.
Oh my
And I
god.
sat right outside his office for two
Yeah.
years. And like, he had no clue who I was, what I was
Yeah.
doing, or why I was leaving. It was just a box to check to say he did an exit interview.
Yeah.
And like, that's what we're going back to. Like, the bar is underground, underground.
Yeah, I can't see it.
So where does that come from? Where does that desire to do things this way? Is it something you learned over time? Was it just part
Yeah.
of who you are as a person?
It's the answer is actually really specific. It's my mom, but the
Mhm.
way that she got there was not fun. So my mom's side of the family still live in Denmark. So I
Mhm.
have this duality of like the quote unquote socialist, you know, Danish Scandinavian hat and like the American grind as well too, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a healthy balance of both. But my mom has been in the mental hospital twice, multiple rounds of electroconvulsive therapy
Mm.
as well too. My grandma, my mom's mom, has tried to, you know, commit suicide multiple times.
Yeah.
Fortunately, that hasn't happened. And my uncle, my mom's brother, has also had his bouts with depression. So I've been very much aware and careful of how my state is at all times too,
Yeah.
and what I can do to what I would almost call to keep this window, this mental window open, that if it starts closing, I'm getting close to danger. And so all the things that I do, like my habits, sleep, eating, exercise, social,
Yeah.
all those things can keep my window open. But growing up, growing up, I hated this. This was my curse growing up, but it became my strength later on in life.
Yeah. It's funny how
That
that works.
it
That is
always
normally the
does.
case.
Like
Yeah.
lines have to be crossed or something has to happen where you're like, okay, now I got this like this mental callus that just makes me bulldoze through shit, right?
Yeah.
So my mom was essentially not able to keep any job for more than 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
And she was like a temp worker as well too. But what she would do when she got a new job is she would figure out and get a lay of the land, talk to obviously new colleagues and all that kind of stuff. And with a fresh set of eyes, she's like, why are we doing things this way? Like, don't you want to change too? And she goes around and talks to everybody. And they're like, yeah, but we're afraid to say anything. She's like, F that. Let me go talk to leadership about that. And what would end up happening is that she would speak her mind with the whole purpose. And again, I guess the intentionality, right?
Yeah.
Of making things better for everybody. And the classic male dominant, you know, corporate culture, totem
Yep.
pole shit, like, fuck you, you're fired, like, you're a temp
Yeah.
worker, like, why do we listen to you? And so she would go on these revolving doors of new jobs. And I was like, mom, like, I remember this. I had a girlfriend that I was terrified to take home to also meet my mom because we lived in the smallest apartment possible, like a 1 bedroom that my mom and I shared. Everybody
Yeah.
else had a house that they were living in, and obviously two parents and all that kind of stuff. And so I was just so upset and frustrated with my mom that it was one of the triggers that was like, I want to go visit my dad in the United States. So her experience, and I would say like a lot of Dr. Phil episodes watching, like just from afar, um, was really my only corporate training.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, if it goes into sales as well too. And it's so easy. Like if I help you first, then I can have an easier time expecting that you're going to help me. So it's not because I want to be selfish, but I know that we have to scratch each other's backs.
Yeah.
So why don't we just make it easier? And also because I know that the market of how they treat employees or how the corporate stigma reputation is so bad,
Yeah.
especially in the US, I'm like, wow, the effort of me putting in asking how can I be better for you is so low. I'm
Yeah.
like, why am I not doing this all the time? And so again, it's been our forte in terms of having people that have like hitting their 7-year anniversary mark. And there's so many
Yeah.
of them as well, too, right? So that's a little bit of the backstory of like, how do I get to this point? My mom sucked at keeping jobs, but there was a lesson to be learned in not being good at keeping a job.
It's so weird, the things that you learn as a child or the things that are instilled in you or the ways you learn to move within the world as a
Yeah.
child, the direct connection those have to the things you become really good at as an adult. So for me, having a very strange childhood, like not going to school and only speaking to people at church, like that was
Yeah.
my world. I was at church or I was at home. And knowing that educationally I was really far behind all of my peers just because I wasn't given the education that I should have been given. So I learned to talk around things that I don't want to talk about. I
Yeah.
could the analogy I make is a lot of comedians will say they got funny because it was either tell a joke or get beat up. And mine was like, I can convince someone to have someone else do this, or everybody will find out I can't read. Like, these are my two
Oh,
options.
wow.
So, like, learning to work in the world that way really helps as an account manager because I have to go into a situation knowing the direction I need to drive a
Yep.
conversation. I can't make people feel manipulated because the goal is not to manipulate. The
Right.
goal is to reach a certain destination because there is a goal in mind when we get to that destination.
Yep.
And so like the ways I learned to do that is just be super personable. Like if I'm going to get on a call, you're getting 100% me. I'm not
Yeah.
going to lie. There's no filter. I'm going to ask you questions about your life. You're going to ask me questions about my life and we will bond personally because
Yeah.
that's going to help me get the hooks in. So when I need to steer a conversation or when we need to have difficult
Yeah.
conversations, it's easy because Zach's
Mm-hmm.
not a vendor. Zach is a person.
Yep.
And that was something I absolutely learned as a kid. And now, in my mid 30s, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like why I leaned into the career path I did
Yeah.
because I learned to do it when I was 11. Like,
Yeah. That's an incredible story. It's so, like you said, it's so funny to like, if you were talking to a therapist, you're like, yep, that's exactly why you're the way you are today.
yeah, yeah. I know it. And,
Yeah.
and it's reassuring that, hey, I'm on the right path. Like
Right.
these things are internal to me. I am naturally good at this. It doesn't mean it's not work. Account
Yeah.
management can be a terrible job.
Right.
People will often ask, like, why don't you just go into sales? Because you don't have to talk to the same people all the time. And I'm like,
And multiple times. Yeah.
yeah, like, because I like the relationship side of it. That is the
Yeah.
drive for me. I did marry an almost stranger 15 years ago. Like, we did not know each other when we got married. And next month we'll be married for 15 years. Like,
Wow.
I like that.
Wait. I want to, what
You
the
want
hell?
some of
Like,
that?
I
So,
just give me the nugget. Like, I just need that real quick.
all right. So Cliff's Notes.
Mail order bride checkbox. No, not that. Okay, maybe
No, so I had left churches.
multiple.
Well, I was at a church that I had grown up at, and I had really long hair and tattoos, and I was essentially asked to stop going. um,
Sorry, that like created a reaction. I could just see yourself even skinnier than you are today because you're a really
like
fit person. You
very
go, by the
skinny.
way, you go to the gym. How many? Well, like you work out like 9 hours out of the day, something along those lines, right? We're going
It's
on a tangent, but it's just
it's
interesting.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny that I'm so anti grind set, but I am the guy that wakes up at 3:30 in the morning.
You're
and
just
goes to the
like,
gym.
these curls ain't gonna do themselves, baby. Like every day. Yes.
So I left the church that I grew up at. I went to another church. Literally within being there for 5 minutes, this girl approaches me. We talk. Then I go on tour with a metal band for a month, and then I come back and we just like hang out at the mall. We never actually dated. There was no like
Yeah.
official anything.
Yeah.
We just went to the mall every day after work. And then 3 months later, I proposed to her. And then
I don't
three
know. I
months
don't know
after
what.
that, we eloped. And
this just sounds like the perfect pitch for a movie script of something like I don't know, we just went to the mall together. We didn't maybe even talk. We just went there
yeah,
every single day after work. That's amazing.
yeah, we just kind of hung out, and then we got married. Yeah, 15 years later, it's worked out for us. We tell people
Seemingly,
it's not the way to do it. You should definitely get to know someone first.
this is not the roadmap or blueprint that we recommend. Yeah.
But I do also, that is very indicative of my personality, like picking
Yeah.
up and leaving Georgia and moving to Maine where we had never even really been before.
Yeah.
Just because we're like, hey, this will be fun. We should try it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
life is too short to not do that stuff.
The opposite migration pattern, like we talked about earlier, for humans. Do you feel like you have that ability? So let me ask you this: if shit hit the fan, right, and you're obviously priority number one is family, do you have that whole like the rebound mentality? I'm talking about like external forces, like job or like a fucking hurricane hits you guys or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're like, nope, kind of like I saw that pre-mortem a mile away, like I'm good, like we'll rebuild, go, like don't worry about it. Like, do you have that mentality?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that could come that could really stop me. Everything that I battle is internal. There's nothing
Yeah.
external that I feel like I could not take on.
Yeah.
It's my own brain is my biggest enemy, because my
Yeah.
brain tells me that life is not always worth living. Like that is
Yeah.
the thing that I have to fight against, is my brain being
Right.
like, hey, you should check out, maybe you
Yep.
should, it's not good anymore.
Yep.
Which is something I actively have to think about and talk about with, and I talk to everybody about it now, because like, why
Yeah.
would I not?
Yeah.
But external forces, my wife and I have been through a lot of shit. We've had a miscarriage. We have
Yeah.
2 special needs kids. We have little contact with a lot of people. Like we have
Yeah.
done a good job of protecting ourselves so we can build the life we want. And sometimes that
Yeah.
means cutting people out
Yeah.
to protect what we have, because what we have is more important than literally anything else. Everybody
Right.
else can fuck off.
Yeah.
This is my family.
Yeah. Maine, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go live in the woods.
That's incredible, man. Thanks for sharing that too. I feel like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
interviewing you now, but like, that's how good episodes are born.
It's like I told you, it's very conversational. There's no rules, which I like to this. It is just, hey, what do we want to talk about for a while?
Well, then I'm going to start my walking treadmill right now. I literally am standing on it, but yeah, I won't do that. Don't worry.
Well, that does lead me to a good question. You made fun of my fitness. I mean, it's an obsession for me. It is.
Yeah.
We did a spin class together. Like it's the only spin class I've ever done. And
Was
I
it
like,
fun though? Because it was like you're dancing on the bike, right? Like it was like kind of like a club.
Oh no, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I
forgot about that, by the way.
Destroyed my legs. I'm a treadmill and stairs guy. I am not a
Yeah.
bike guy.
Different
So-
muscle set.
It was different. Even today, you posted about the importance of sleep patterns on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Like clearly taking a big focus on those things. Is that also something that you've really spent a lot of time or a lifetime thinking about? Or is that something as you've gotten older? I know a lot of people, as you start to get older and your body's like, hey, it's
Yeah.
stiff in the morning.
Part of it was like I need to turn up the heat as I age, because I don't want to have the feeling that I'm getting slower or less strong, like weaker or anything like that too. So it's funny. When I asked the question too on, the external forces about rattling you, like I feel the exact same way. On the flip side of my mom, my dad's side of the family has kicked me out of the house 3 different times. And like, that was my only financial connection to kind of like being able to do anything. So I've had that rug pulled out from underneath me. So while I'm really chill from maybe my Danish side and lacking the corporate experience, I also have this like it's rooted in anxiety that somebody else can come and pull out that rug out from underneath me, and so I have to build everything from scratch. Where I need to make the rug as heavy as I possibly can, which is my obsession with building a company that's coming from. So luckily, I've been able to take the bad things and turn them into quote unquote superpowers, and it's one of those things too where it has to be holistic for me, because I remember in high school over here in the US, I had this amazing biology high school teacher. And it was one of the reasons why I actually wanted to come to the US and be a marine biologist, not a marketer. I took chemistry and I was like, absolutely not. Like, I have to figure something else out. But that's actually how it happened. But the guy was so good at one facet of life, right? But
Yeah.
he was so overweight. And I was like, man, as a biology teacher, not knowing what's happening internally, how
Yeah.
can you neglect that kind of stuff? So I got this like pet peeve vibe where I'm like, okay, I also know that many people are struggling in terms of like their finances and the cost of living, especially now buying a house. Best of luck. Maybe move to Maine. It'll be
Yeah.
easier.
It is. It is easier.
Good, just for people knowing that. And there is no one excess mindset of spending the time to like know what better sleep is like, or
Yeah.
know what your visceral fat like volume should be like. There's all these different scans you can now do that are becoming easier and cheaper. So there's no mental abundance to do that. One. Second, there's definitely no financial abundance to do that either.
Yeah.
And so for me, what you saw on LinkedIn is the whole principle again of being intentional, and the whole holistic version of just helping people become better at who they are. Because if I know that I can help you become a better dad, you can help me become a better dad
Yeah.
or husband as well too. That shit's gonna ripple. And I know for a fact, like you're gonna explain some of the things that you're becoming aware of to other
Yep.
people, and you're gonna start like a chain reaction that way as well too. So I quickly think to, I'm gonna go all over the place right now, but I promise I'm gonna make a point.
No, it's good. It's good.
I have this poster on my wall that has little bubbles of weeks left to live. And every time a week passes, I got to fill in the bubble. And I bought the I bought the poster with 100 years. There's also the version of like 79 years. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to buy that one. I want to buy the 100-year one. And it's a reflection point that I'm like, am I doing the things that are most important? And when I think about when my time is up and I have a funeral, like how many people are actually going to show up to that funeral, and how many people
Yeah.
did that impact? And one part of that is just being a great CEO, but then stopping there where the expectations I think around are of what a CEO does. It's just like, well, a great CEO is just like they listen and they help me, get promotions, make more money, learn some new skills. But could I take it beyond that too? And indirectly, I know, people listening, they'll be like, well, JD, like we know that if you improve all these things, like the productivity of your team will go up. Quick ability too of like the external forces like rattling you like this. I call it a pre-mortem. What's the worst thing that can happen? And I know that many of the things from a health perspective, cancer, cardiovascular disease, dementia, diabetes, the four main killers, right? They're also all interconnected, and the appearance of those diseases you don't just go for your colonoscopy and boom, then you have rectal cancer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a slow build of growth of all of them. So the calcification of your arteries and all that kind of stuff in the buildup there. Same thing with diabetes. Like you have to be at a certain marker, but you should know if you're pre-diabetic way in advance as well too. You kind of look at this increase in just a wellness interest as well too. And long story short, I was taking our values internally at KlientBoost, which is actually an acronym that spells PARTY. It's pushing yourself, accountability, resilience, transparency. Fuck, another person doing it. Hey, turn that down.
I'm leaving all this in. I'm leaving all this in just so you know. It's good stuff.
You should get the things that I'm like, let me actually unplug it. 1 second, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Can you hear it okay? I think I have noise canceling. Is it okay? Or
I couldn't hear it. I wasn't hearing it at all. It doesn't mean that it's
we may
not
just
in there
have a little
somewhere,
background music in the back for the rest of the episode. That's fine too. Oh,
there we go.
That was, hold on 1 sec. Just speaking of external factors, all of a sudden Wi-Fi went down. I go back. Spotify tells me that my credit card expired. Zoom has to do some updates. I'm like, I'm never getting back on this show. And I'm calm as a cucumber, folks. Like that's how you got to remember that.
See, that's strength under pressure.
Strength under exactly. Pressure. A lot of pressure happening.
Where was I? You were like 10 minutes into making a point that started with, I'm going to go a lot of places, and then it'll all like tie together.
But I promise I'll stitch it together.
So you were talking about the 100-year calendar, filling in those bubbles every week.
Oh, so the mental abundance and the financial abundance that's completely lacking in terms of like what trajectory we as especially Americans have like gone, like less sleep, more processed foods, less working out, social wise, as far as close friend count, dropping that as well too.
Yep.
And so we have those values, I think I mentioned as well too, in the acronym of what it stands for. And I was like, Why don't I take that to another level? Why don't I create something called a Party 360 program? So we've had health challenges in the past where it was basically who can burn the most active calories wearing an Apple Watch, and what ends up happening after that month is you either go on antibiotics because you're sick,
Yeah.
you're addicted to Advil because you're in pain all the time, and you're throwing away your Apple Watch because you're like, I never want to see this thing in my life ever again because
Yeah.
I grinded so hard. And it was hilarious because like our health challenges were really not healthy. There was no healthy habits built at all.
Yeah.
Um, and so the whole sleep and all these other factors. So, anyways, we created this like five focused thing around if you do these things in this order, you give your best chance to also have a better mental health from that window analogy that I used earlier. So the first
Yeah.
thing first is like the sleep. And the first domino to fall on all of these things is just awareness, right? Like
Yeah.
if you have a baseline of what your sleep score is, whether you have an Aura ring or a Whoop band or even, you know, a smartwatch, that's step one. The second part is like your diet, because like you can't outwork a bad diet if you have goals in terms
Yeah.
of losing weight. And a lot of times the fat aspect is related to all the other diseases, even
Yep.
dementia to some degree too. Then you have your physical health, then you have your social health, and then you have your mental health as the last one. And it's like getting away off the dopamine hamster wheel of like your social media and things like that too.
Yeah.
So three levels per one of each of those five things are the health challenges that we're going to create for the first quarter of this upcoming 2024 year.
Yeah.
And I had one person that it wasn't even a health challenge. It was just a colleague that I was like, yo, I'm gonna give you an Oura ring and I want to see what you think. She found out that like she was drinking 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day and she couldn't wind down at all. And then so she had the awareness and I was like, what's your sleep score? And it's like a score from 0 to 100. I was
Hmm.
like, for sure it's gonna be lower than mine, you know, because I'm like the person, you know, doing this.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, I'm consistently in the 90s and I'm looking at my I'm like 76, damn it, like what's going on? So but that's like a so many of us, long story short, we live in a fog, we live in a mental haze and we don't even know about it. We don't know that our energy levels could actually be consistent. So over
Yeah.
time I've been guinea pigging myself with continuous glucose monitoring and found out that like pizza is my enemy. I'm like, why couldn't it be something else? Because like that glucose spike just keeps on going forever. And so we have the sleep side of things. We have blood biomarkers that we're going to be doing as well too, and
Yeah.
then we have a DEXA scan, which is essentially bone mineral density, visceral fat kind of thing as well too, and then an understanding of how all those things are tied together to are you on a trajectory that's actually really bad? Because let's be honest, most people are not just within
Yeah.
KlientBoost, but most people are without them knowing that. And what could you change now to like just be aware of that kind of stuff? So that my first goal is just to plant that seed and like give people the choice to control their health in a different way, and that's where it started from.
I mean, that's cool and all, but a lot of agencies have beer on Fridays, so you
We
know.
do that too. Like you got to live a little bit as well. We do have tequila bottles downstairs.
I'm joking. I'm the lifelong sober guy. So the beer Fridays, I was always like, can I just get like a cash bonus on this? Like I am not participating. Can you just
Here,
like slide me a
here's three
50?
dollars. Here's $3 for your Corona, sir.
So you did mention one thing before all the technical difficulties
Yes.
about being kicked out, and then like your
Yeah.
those financial needs that you had or the people you were looking to. I love stories of near destitution. So my wife and I, getting married young, having no real jobs.
Yeah.
There was a point we were in our first apartment and we had just paid rent and we had like 17 cents in the bank. And she had to
That's less money than like the Matt LeBlanc from Friends story or whatever when he moved to
yeah,
LA. That's
yeah.
incredible.
So she had to go to work to pick up her check because she didn't have direct deposit or anything. But we didn't have enough gas in the car for her to drive
Oh
to
my
work
God.
to pick up her check. So we're like digging through the couch to find change so we can go get like $1.25 worth of gas so she can drive to work to get a check so we can survive for the next week.
Did
And
you
like,
actually find change in the couch?
of course, we did.
That's a human law anyways, so that makes sense. I'm not surprised.
And it was a secondhand couch. So it's not like it was even our change that we found, it was somebody else's.
Bonus.
But like in those moments, it feels like your world is collapsing, but you find a way to get through it. And then looking back on it, it's hilarious. We're like,
Mhm.
we were how did we manage to go from that to where we are now, like the lives we have built? Like, it's a really good way to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
So do you have any of those stories where you're like, oh, this is my last 17 cents. Life is about to fall apart and I
Dude,
do not know what I'm going to do next.
I have quite a few. So the second time or the first time that I got kicked out, my dad essentially like really loved that I played basketball. And I got a girlfriend at the time and I started caring less about basketball. And
Yeah.
so my grades were dropping as well too. I take accountability. And and then I was like, we got in a fight or something like that. And I was like, Dad, why don't you just send me home? And like home meant like Denmark, right? And
Yeah.
so a couple hours later, he printed out a British Airways like itinerary and just put it on the dining table as like a threat, essentially. And I was like, I was like calling his bluff. I'm like, okay. He's like, sweet, pack your shit. We're going to the LAX right now. And like he literally did drop me off that same day. 3 hours later, I was on a flight back to Denmark. And this was like middle of junior year of high school, right? And
Yeah.
so as a like I'm not living in the ghetto, I'm not living, but everything is relative. You got to remember that as well
Yep.
too. And so the whole rug of like friends are gone. I'm 17, I think, at that time. So I could drive a car over the US, but I don't have anything in Denmark.
Yeah.
And so just my mental open map mindset was completely gone from a physical because I could take, I guess, public transportation that's better there, but like not for much. And I was forced to actually get my first job as well too, because my mom was like, that's just what we do. Like you got to
Yeah.
do that. And I'm like, no, I'm going to play basketball over here and I'm hopefully going to get a scholarship. I'm just going to chill and play basketball. Like that's it. That was my goal. Right.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was, I had a whole freaking year of this feeling of not being able to hit the apex of a deep breath. So I could like,
Yeah.
but I couldn't take the deep breath. And I was like, what is going on? And I couldn't run. I couldn't play basketball, like even in Denmark, like I couldn't do any of those things. And I was like on these like Chinese herbal remedies or drinking a lot of salt water in class in high school. And I was always tired because I either didn't get enough oxygen or whatever. So I was napping all
Yeah.
the time. And so later on, I figured out it might have been like a stress induced anxiety thing that was actually happening to me. But that was a low point where I was like, the quality of life just like drastically went down. Everything got taken away from me. I had to figure things out as well too. And, you know, it happened multiple times in my life. I also had when I came back to be with my dad going into college. I was working under his wing. He has this a mortgage company as well too. And then he just decided like, I'm going to go film a documentary. Like I'm out. I'm like, okay, I just got my real estate license. Thanks, bro. Like that's awesome. And I was like, okay, taking the rug from like being pulled from underneath me in the past to like, I can't cry about it. I just got to figure things out. And so
Yeah.
I sometimes would like wash and wax my dad's car and he would pay me for the detailing of that. And we're in Southern California. Like we have a lot of nice people that we're not, I wouldn't say they're nice people, but they have nice cars.
People with
And
nice cars. Yeah, of course.
people with money, right? And so I was like, why don't I go on Craigslist? And I put up my car detailing services. And I kind of figured out that, the more people that see my listing that click through on it, the higher the chance of the phone ringing as well, too.
Yeah.
And so back then, there was no native upload feature of photos for like the before and after pictures of me cleaning cars.
Yeah.
And so I figured out how to do that with like photobucket.com, get the image source code, put it in. And people would call me. So half of people would call me, be like, how did you do that? And other people would call me, the half would be like, I want to hire you. And so I ended up also putting like visitor counters. Like you remember back in the day when you go to a website, go down to the footer, they're like, your visitor number 10,900 and whatever.
Yeah.
So there's no analytics within Craigslist to kind of figure out like if I split test my headline and I have a higher click-through rate, I would get more visits. But how would I figure out if that's true? Oh, I put a visitor counter in there.
Yeah.
So indirectly, I was doing this thing called marketing without even knowing it. And I was like one, I was fit as shit because I was working like 3 to 4 cars a day in the beating sun, just manual labor and making like $400 a day as well too.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm pretty good at this kind of stuff. But the whole connection point I'm trying to make is that the mental calluses were starting to build, and that adversity that was going through that was happening was just like looking back at it, like if you can choose a right direction to get out of that adversity, you will always be better off for it. It seems like, because the bar of what's hard is so much higher for you mentally than anybody else that's going through anything else that hasn't had that adversity yet. You wouldn't
Yeah.
wish it on anybody, but you also kind of know that like if it doesn't break you, if it doesn't kill you, obviously, jump in the deep end of the pool and see what happens. You'll be fine, but you just don't know it right now.
Yeah, no, building resilience over time is scary, but long run, you are a
Yeah.
better person, you are a better employee, you're a better spouse, you're a better parent,
Yeah.
because those things that might cripple someone else when they come
Yeah.
up, you're like, it's no big deal. Like I've
No.
had way worse. This is nothing.
You're a,
Like
you're
we
a
just keep
you're a
moving.
cheat code. You're a
Yeah,
cheat code of perspective is how I like to put it. And when
yeah,
you talk to your kids, for example, and you're like, they're going to deal with the common things that all kids deal with, and you kind of try to help them zoom out, but you know that they're really not going to be able to fully zoom out until they also have the same experiences as well
yeah,
too. But you're giving them a little bit of that cheat code as they go along too, and like they're going to be 30 years old one day, and they're going to be like, my dad's a freaking goat, because like, or mom, right? Like they
yeah.
just set me up so right, and like that's kind of what I want to be able to say and do, and hopefully get that relationship to kind of get stronger over time with my kids as well.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like people my age, and I'm 34. Like my friends that have
I'm
kids,
36, so we're not far.
or coworkers who have kids, whose kids are in the same age range. I've noticed this very distinct change in like the way our parents spoke to us and the way we speak to our kids.
Yeah.
Because like I talk to my kids like they're people. Like they're
Yeah.
not my property. They're not. Yes, they are children, but I speak to them as though they have thoughts and feelings because they have
Yeah.
thoughts and feelings. Even to the point of like my wife is really good about having conversations of, hey, how did it feel when I said this? Or like if they have a
Yeah.
negative reaction to a certain word, why? What can? How can? It's essentially how can I be better for you? With the
Yeah.
kids of like, hey, this word doesn't work for you for whatever reason. So how can we
Yeah.
shift that? What can I say that is helpful to help you understand what I'm trying to get across, but doesn't have any negative connotation for you internally, for
Right.
whatever reason? And talking to like people I work with, they're like, oh yeah, no, we do that same thing with our kids, and like seeing the way my kids act. My daughter's teacher said that my daughter advocates for herself in a way they've never seen a 7-year old advocate for
Oh,
herself.
wow.
I'm like, that's badass. Like, she
Yeah.
knows what she's feeling and she knows
You
how to
get
convey
you,
what she's feeling.
yeah, the mental arrows that you're giving your kids in their quiver.
Yeah,
Um, as a parent, like when you say you want the best for your children, and you care about their happiness, you cannot shortcut that. Like that, you have to do that, and like
yeah,
without a doubt, because like you're setting them up for just whatever the world throws at them as well too. So like,
yeah.
she could probably get a job right now here as on the sales team, probably pretty easily.
Dude, she's a monster. She is unstoppable.
That's
Like
awesome.
there's no one says no to her, and if you do, you're
Yeah.
wrong. So she's gonna get what she wants. And
Yep.
like this is ideal. This is the kind of kid that I need. Like nobody's gonna stop her. She's a
Well,
pain in the ass, just like
that's
me.
why you're the state of Maine lemonade stand profits are soaring through the roof right now. I've seen,
It's
at least in the
it's,
summer, not now, but yeah.
it's eggs. She wants to set up like a chicken egg stand and
She
sell eggs.
understands where the market is going. The protein, it's a smart move. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sustainable market. It has no seasonality. People
Yep.
need eggs year round. So she's good. She's what you were doing with Craigslist when you were doing CRO with Craigslist. When CRO
Essentially.
didn't exist yet,
Yep.
she's doing that with the egg market in Maine.
I freaking love that. I want like some shipped over here, to be honest. That's
Well,
amazing.
you'll have to fight Cody and Beth because I know they're gonna set up their own egg stand as well. So shout
They
out
they are
Cody and
going
Beth.
they're going hard. Yeah. I send them for some odd reason. Instagram is now thinking that I'm like a chicken fan, so I get a lot of
Yeah,
memes and videos that I send to them. So it's good.
that's so funny. Just in wrapping up, um, I've been asking people like, what does success look like for you? How do you define it? Whether it be work, whether it be family, whether it be a combination of the two. What is for you when you go home at the end of the day? You're like, oh, today was a successful day. Like I did
Yeah.
it. It was a good day.
I'll give the philosophical answer, and I think the more practical answer. For me, it was actually from reading the book Atomic Habits. Have you read that one?
Yep.
It's like you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And it's like I'm a big basketball fan, big Kobe Bryant fan, and he was also talking about like it's a journey, man. I don't care like I care, of course, for the championships, but what I really have fun doing is getting in the weight room, working on my game, and just part of the journey aspect. That's what I'm having fun with. So that's me. That's my success bar. Because like as we talked about and alluded to earlier, as soon as you hit that goal, if you have it as a predefined one, you're going to move the goalpost later on.
Yeah.
That's just human nature. And I think that's a healthy thing, to be honest, to do too. But I don't put my happiness to be around the corner. I put my happiness to be in the day to day. The more practical answer is if I feel productive, I've actually moved the needle on something that I'm like, God, I was just treading water today, right? Like that happens a lot too, especially wearing a lot of hats. And I'm like, I think I made an impact on something that I want to launch, a marketing campaign or whatever it may be in the future.
Yeah.
So that's my duality of those answers.
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's different for everybody, and everybody's perspective on it is so different that I love it. Like some people's answer is just like, no, when I can tell I did something, like when I accomplished my list. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just about the list for me. And like, that's so simple and beautiful. And I love that.
Yeah. Well, I literally have like 7 different handwritten notes because I'm like a boomer. I can't have it digitally. So I'm like the checking off, like or the striking through dopamine hit, I could heavily rely.
Everything with me is handwritten. I handwrite all my notes and then I move it over digitally after that.
if it even gets to that point, right? Like it might not even do that.
Yeah. When I put it in my Salesforce notes, those go in. Everything else stays in the book. Dude,
that's a lie. But
it was great. It was great catching up with you. It was good talking to you.
You too, dude.
I highly recommend people follow you on LinkedIn. Your content's great. Literally anybody on the KB team is putting out good content. Like they should just follow everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So thanks for joining. It was a pleasure speaking with you, buddy.
Thank you, man. Have a great Christmas and getting into the springtime without frostbite. I hope it goes fine.
It was 4 this morning, just so you know. It was 4.
Jeez. I went to the mountains in California. I was like, oh my God, it's 28 degrees in the morning. I'm like, no, I'm a former Viking. I'm a former Viking. What's wrong with you, dude? It's wild.
Awesome. Thanks, JD.
Thanks, brother.